Coming up on First at 4, we'll have more on a bill that would allow school children in Kentucky to skip out on the COVID-19 vaccine. Plus, the National Transportation Safety Board releases a new report on the hazardous train derailment in Ohio.
It's going to be very windy tomorrow with the possibility for severe storms as well. I'm breaking it all down coming up as First at 4 continues.
Mountain News First at 4 continues.
And we continue to get you prepared for severe weather, possibly headed to our region. It's expected to roll in tomorrow. Our First Alert Weather Day continues as we check in with meteorologist Evan Hatter. Evan.
That's right, Steve. I think that's important to note that we're ringing these alarm bells in preparation for something that's heading our way tomorrow. There is no severe weather threat for tonight. Nothing of the sort. We're going to see some rain past dark, but I don't think this is not a severe weather scenario for tonight. It's heading into tomorrow. Look outside right now, continuing our overcast skies that we've seen plenty of throughout the day today. 60, the current temperature out at London Corbin Airport, going to Buffalo Mountain in Perry County. Cloudy there as well. We've been socked in with the overcast, all quiet after some rainfall this morning on Pinpoint Doppler. Already starting to see things getting going out to our south and to our west as that very strong low pressure continues to work its way through the southern plains and will head in our direction as we head into the day tomorrow. Outside right now, upper 50s to lower 60s. For tonight, we see those gusty winds increase. Not as gusty as they'll be tomorrow. 54 the low tonight. You see a level 3 enhanced risk for severe weather for our western counties. Everybody else under the level 2 slight risk. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that when that gets updated early tomorrow morning, that enhanced risk is moved to the east, and just about everybody is under the high wind warning as well for strong gusty winds outside of any thunderstorms. It's something we'll continue to watch. First Alert Weather Day in place for tomorrow. Damaging winds and tornadoes on the table as we head through our Friday. I'll have the details breaking it down in just a few minutes. Steve?
Evan, thank you. The news never stops, even after we're on the air, but we've got you covered. Starting Monday, a new era begins. It will be the relaunch of Local News Live, our national news network, which streams online all the time on WYMT.com and the WYMT News app. Local News Live anchor and WYMT national correspondent Deborah Alfarone joins us now from the LNL studios in Washington, D.C. And Deborah, our viewers should be familiar with you already because we used to air your stories all the time when you were with CBS News. And I actually met you, I don't know if you remember this, I met you a few months ago when I was at the Gray News Director Summit in D.C. and I toured the CBS News Washington newsroom, and I actually think we have a pic I wanted to show of that. I don't know if you can see it, but I took a picture.
Yes.
I took a picture with you that day. So it's great to see you again, and welcome to Gray.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here.
So tell us about Local News Live and what we can expect starting next week.
Okay. So we're very excited, and I can't even show you the studio right now. So I'm in a different studio because it's too much of a big surprise. All of the new graphics, it's going to be so cool. And I'm so thrilled to be able to share it with you and everybody who's watching right now. Okay, so Local News Live, 24/7, 365. We're going to be on the air, streaming, and you can get all of your headlines, your breaking news, and also those incredible stories from our 100+ Gray stations. And you know the Gray stations are incredible. We have wonderful storytellers. So from across the country, because nobody can tell a story like a local journalist. If you're a local journalist, you know what's going on in your community, and if there's even big breaking news there. What happens is you know what that means. You know what that means to the people who live there. You know the reverberations of what's going to happen in that area. So the local journalists are going to be coming on and sharing their stories. We're going to have their stories that they tell, whether they be breaking news or those incredible inspirational stories. And I know you know what I'm talking about, those ones that make you just go, ah, that's why I do what I do. So it's pretty exciting stuff, and it's all going to happen on Monday.
Yeah, and a good example, you've taken our weather coverage before. We have a possible severe weather outbreak tomorrow, and that's the types of things I know you guys look for. So there's many ways to get news these days. So what would you say makes Local News Live the place you should go?
So you're right. There are so many places, and I have so many apps even on my phone. As a journalist, I'm always following what everyone's doing. So what we have is the local journalist and the power of those Gray journalists. So again, Gray Television, 100+ stations across the country. And when there's breaking news, let's say in Ohio, East Palestine, that train derailment, what happens is we go to our Cleveland station and they understand that community. I've never heard of East Palestine until that unfortunate train derailment happened, and maybe other people around the country haven't either. But those journalists who work so hard in that community can tell us what that really means. They know the people that live there. And also, what happens is, you know this too, there's stories that you wouldn't know unless you lived there, right? Like, I remember being here in Washington and running into a woman who showed me a calendar, and next thing I know, I'm meeting this woman who was the face of civil rights, because she didn't even realize that this picture was taken of her when she was at the March on Washington as a young girl. And so here I am just bumping into her because I'm in Washington, and she tells me this story, and now we've had her on, and she's given her story to the Smithsonian. She's donated her banner to the museum here in Washington, D.C. And again, it's because I'm bumping into her. And that's really what it is you're in the community and you know these stories. So I will tell you that you'll get all your breaking news, and you'll get it with a local lens from the people who know it best.
So how can folks watch if they don't know?
Your live stream page on your website, when you guys are done with your newscast, what happens is we come on. When you're watching on the app, on your app, your station's app, and you guys are done with your newscast, that's when Local News Live comes on. So you can always find us by watching you.
And Deborah, I know a lot of people also know you from social media, and you often share life advice, talk about your wardrobe or whatever's on your mind. Do you feel like you connect with viewers more doing things like that?
You know, that's a great question. I think so. I think people sometimes look at local journalists or, you know, national journalists and think they have no problems in their life. They're on TV. You know, I have old dresses that I put on and I go, oh, well, what do you think of this dress? Should I trash it or should I keep it? You know, just like anybody else. And I also like to share, you know, that I don't always have a good day. I'm smiling with you now, but maybe, you know, I've got some family issues or something, you know, has been going on and I'm down. So I like to share what helps me. I think that we all owe it to the viewers, to the people who watch us, to the people in our community, and the people just around us, to really try and lift others up. I mean, that's my personal motto. Is if I can share something that makes you feel a little bit better, then I'm happy. That's what I live for.
Deborah Alfarone, thank you again. We look forward to talking with you many more times in the future. Well, businesses and organizations gathered at Big Sandy Community and Technical College today to serve as a resource hub. From addiction recovery resources to legal help, EKSEP's site program hosted a community resource event to help guide people toward recovery and re-entry into the workforce. The program filled the Johnson building of the Prestonsburg campus with informational booths and more, working to transform the workforce by transitioning new workers.
Trying to help them find those resources, as well as an expungement clinic we've held today with Department of Corrections and Apple Red Law offices, where people can get those charges from 10 to 15 years ago expunged from their record so they are able to go out and get employment.
The resource fair was the first of its kind through EKSEP, and organizers hope to see more in the future. We'll have more about that coming up tonight at 6. Kentucky lawmakers have advanced a bill dealing with COVID-19 vaccine requirements for school children. If made law, the State Department of Education could not require kids get the COVID shot. WYMT's Phil Pendleton has more on the debate from the state capitol.
If this bill becomes law, the only ones that could require the kids to get COVID-19 vaccines in schools would be their parents. The sponsor says House Bill 101 and its committee substitute make clear that no person, entity, or government body can require that a child receives a COVID shot. He says parents, guardians, or others in the care of the children can have them get the shots if they choose. It comes from the concern that the Kentucky Department of Education could take action after lawmakers leave session.
And what my fear is if we don't decide that the parent or guardian is the one responsible for these children to receive COVID shots, then possibly when we get out of session, the KDE could recommend, based on the CDC recommendations, that before kids go back to school next fall, they have to have a COVID shot.
And I think in our public settings, we have a social responsibility to ensure that we are vaccinating against, diseases of various diseases, viruses, and that's why I'll be voting no today.
The bill did pass the committee with a final tally of 14-3. It now goes on to the full House floor. In Frankfort, Phil Pendleton, now back to you.
The bill amends an existing state law dealing with various school standards, curriculum, along with sanitary and protective construction of school facilities. In Ohio, union leaders are claiming rail workers have no personal protective equipment and are getting sick at the site of the East Palestine toxic train derailment. The National Transportation Safety Board is also out with an update saying the train had problems with some of its pressure valves. If they worked properly, the NTSB says the valves could have minimized the chance for an explosion. CNN's Mike Valerio has more.
In the middle of this toxic cleanup, railroad union leaders say their workers are operating here with no PPE.
I've been out there a dozen times. Nobody's wearing protective equipment. I've asked 3 or 4 times. It's really alarming.
Michael Rulli represents East Palestine in the Ohio State Senate. He also lives near the derailment.
Some people that live near the rail actually are suffering from rashes and some discoloration in the skin. So it's a very real thing, and the workers there need to be protected.
Friday marks 1 month since the disaster, and the uncertainty about how lives can continue is palpable.
I have a part ownership in a farm, so I'm concerned about that, the soil at the farm. Can we plant? Can we not plant? Will anybody buy it if we do plant?
In terms of new federal regulations, a bipartisan group of U.S. senators is introducing a bill that will enhance safety procedures for trains carrying hazardous materials, reduce the risk of train wheel bearing failures, boost maximum fines for wrongdoing, and require at least 2-person crews on trains like the one that derailed. The head of the NTSB, who calls this accident 100% preventable, says she looks forward to the CEO of Norfolk Southern testifying before the Senate next week.
I would ask him what would he do differently, and how will he protect this community now that there's been a spill, and how will he protect the workers?
I'm Mike Valerio reporting.
All 7 Class 1 railroads in the U.S., including Norfolk Southern, are expected to announce voluntary participation in a confidential close call safety reporting system. The voluntary program would allow workers to report safety hazards, including conditions that could lead to derailments. Police in Maryland say 3 people were injured after a Metro bus crashed through a jewelry store this morning. Officials say it happened around 9:30 at a jewelry store in the Wheaton area. Officials say the bus crashed into another vehicle before it crashed into the store. Police say the jewelry store was closed and unoccupied at the time. The bus was also not occupied except for the driver. Authorities say the 3 people transported to the hospital, including the driver, suffered non-life-threatening injuries. We'll be right back with weather.